Facebook friends, Marianne here in my PJs in the wee hours with no makeup on, but for a very good reason. I posted something on this in a lot more detail, but I know that some of you have repeatedly told me that you prefer when I explain things like this. And what this particular thing is about is a very disturbing trend I'm seeing online now, where people are trying to tackle the fact, and this is those that are Christian and biblical and trying to defend all the horrible things we see ICE doing, from tearing families apart, the rapes that have been occurring in the concentration camps, the denial of food and health care, and all the horrendous things that we hear in the news. Many people are not even denying that that stuff is going on. But the trend is now we hear a lot of people on the MAGA side trying to say, hey, when Jesus said, however you treated the least of these is how you treat me, he was referring to the action and the mentality of individuals and not nations, that we are a nation of laws and therefore it doesn't apply. Well, just my little 2 cents here. If you want to get biblical about it, if you want to get biblical about it, the whole story of Sodom and Gomorrah, people love to say that's all about going against homosexuality, but in fact, it was 2 angels that were in disguise as people that were in deep need, starving, knocking on doors, please, we're so thirsty, we're so hungry, will you help me? And everyone in this huge communities, 2 big towns, turned them away except for an older couple who barely had anything to give and still gave them hospitality. And then the people surrounded the house, realizing that this couple was trying to protect them, and said, send them out so that essentially we might rape them. It wasn't homosexuality, it was rape that was the great sin after the lack of hospitality. Now, if we want to get very literal in terms of our biblical interpretation here, you're seeing not an individual, but a whole society. In fact, 2 huge societies that were perfectly fine with the act of rape being used as legal punishment for people that they considered they shouldn't be around. They shouldn't be asking for help. They were dirty. They just weren't the type of people they wanted to see. So therefore, they felt righteous because the law said that you could turn them away. And you didn't have to feed them, you didn't have to clothe them, you didn't have to care about them. If they were wounded, you didn't have to do anything about it. You could deny them food and clean water, and you could punish them with rape. Now, for those of you that know, we have a horrible situation in the state of Texas where a bunch of young girls, as young as 12 years old, all the way to older women who were far from being able to be pregnant, many of them were not pregnant at all, put into ICE concentration camps, have been found by the current legal system, even MAGA judges have found that they were raped, okay? So if we're trying to be very literal about all this, this would say a big argument that yes, it is not just about the individual, it's about societies because, societies are made up of individuals, and how you vote and how you respond to the way laws are implemented is a response to individuals making up a society's decision. If we were to ignore this kind of train of thought, then we could excuse the entire Holocaust, because you can actually go online and see videos of Nazis singing Christmas carols with Christmas trees that had swastikas next to crosses, because it was done in the name of God and they Christianized the whole thing. You know how people talk about greenwashing when, companies want to look green, but they're really not doing it? That was the same thing that Nazis did. And that is, yes, I'm going to say it, the same thing that MAGA is doing now. By Christian nationalism is essentially Christian washing political agendas. And these current political agendas are about bigotry and hate and fear. And if you take delight in somebody else's crying, somebody else's heartbreak, somebody else's terror, and you think it's hilarious, and you put that laughing emoji down because you're seeing families torn apart, not knowing if they will ever see each other, people who are now dying because they are being denied the health care that they needed because they were fighting cancer. A man that was completely reliant on his father, who was because the man was paralyzed and his father was taken away and no one cared about what happened to him. These are the least of these that Jesus would be referring to. So I admit I chose to be pagan. I was brought up in a Roman Catholic church and I am pursuing an interfaith ordination, but that means that I appreciate all faiths. And I do take a great deal of inspiration for my own humanitarian work in the world from the Catholicism that I was brought up in. And what I just shared with you is pure Catholicism. So all those of you that are hating on Catholics right now and are gung-ho about the current administration saying it's going to use the Pentagon to go kill the Pope, well, I guess you'll disagree with me. But for those of you that actually care about a theological argument, I hope that answers a few questions.